And Melbourne Cup Day's finally here, Gelding. 10 race card at Flemington with the first, a very early 10:45. So we're recording this the day before. What are your thoughts on the lead up to the Cup as it stands at the moment?
Good morning, Professor. Good morning, listeners. Professor, you're going to pick one in race one to keep me up and early and get to the TAB. Hopefully, they'll open before the first
No,
at our
Gelding,
favourite haunt,
I'm not. I'm
the
not
Melbourne
making it that.
Racing Club.
No, not making it that difficult for you, Gelding. I'm
All right.
not going to race two.
Oh, race two. Oh, one race lead way. Fantastic. Fantastic, Professor. How have I found the lead up to the Melbourne Cup, Professor? Well, having a look at the final field, look, some question marks on that final field and that. A lot of the good horses with form leading up to it and a lot of the good international horses aren't running for a variety of reasons. Via Sassoona, of course, they've decided to miss it. The Cox Plate winner probably would have started favourites. Jean Begol, the undefeated horse from Aidan O'Brien, the stewards and the vet have decided to scratch it, saying, which I found rather amusing, Professor, a bloke like O'Brien and Coolmore bring a horse from overseas, they pick it, pay a lot of money. You would get no better horseman in the world than Aidan O'Brien, would you? I couldn't imagine. And a vet here says the horse is at risk, high risk of injury. It hasn't got an injury. It's here. It's at Werribee. It's not injured. It's doing work. But the bone scans say they draw from the scans that there's a high risk of injury. Well, Professor, there's a high risk of injury. We could go outside the front door and get injured. So does that mean you don't go outside? I just think they've made a bit of a rod for their own back, with horses previously breaking down. It's a sport. These owners know the risk. The horses are bred to run. I don't know. How would you feel, Professor, if the AFL put Christian Petrarca out of a preliminary final because he might get hurt in the game?
Well, Gelding, there's a lot. There's a lot to take away there, isn't there? And it could keep us talking for hours about risk of injury and what bone scans show. Um, do they bone scan every horse, Gelding?
The internationals,
Oh, they don't bone scan the ones who live here.
no, they can,
Well,
but
yeah, I
they
know,
don't.
but but there might be a horse running in the Melbourne Cup that's a risk of injury if it was bone scanned in any event, but it hasn't been bone scanned.
Yes, Professor, agree completely with you. Like, I know, is this just an overreaction of a race committee again for what has happened previously? Like the VRC, there has been some overseas horses and some high profile overseas horses that have broken down and unfortunately have had to be euthanized because of, they're not used to the harder tracks here in yeah. But look, I would have thought that if an owner has the right, has incurred significant costs getting a horse here, certainly understand a vet being able to scratch a horse saying this horse is injured prior to going in. No problems about this. But to be able to scratch it because it may be at a higher risk of injury, is that a test that's unknown or what?
I haven't heard that test before, Gelding. This is the first time I've heard it raised by the steward, by the vet. So, look, it seems to me.
It was brought in after Van Dyke came. Coolmore brought Van Dyke over, ran second in the Caulfield Cup, and was highly fancied in the Melbourne Cup. It ran on a hard track, and unfortunately, the horse did break down. and it was a magnificent racehorse, and it had to be destroyed. And of course, that leads to bad publicity. But then the reaction was, well, every international that comes over, we're going to bone scan, and we will have the right to decide whether they run or not, and to decide the careers. It just, yeah, I don't know. To me, it just seems to be, I admire them for doing something, but again, is it one of these things, which you'll see many times, Professor, sometimes there's a reaction to an event that overkills the actual event. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And whether this is, look, Aidan O'Brien wouldn't be running a horse if he thought it could be injured. Remember, they race horses worldwide. And this is a horse that they're talking about. They don't know whether they'll take it back to Europe now or whether they'll go into Hong Kong in December. So this horse that was favourite for the Melbourne Cup for basically 6 months could be racing in 6 weeks' time in Hong Kong, Professor.
Well, I'll throw this one in, Gelding. There's also a chance that it might not race again. Because you think about this. If the horse was to be taken to Hong Kong and starts in Hong Kong and breaks down, the owners would be saying, well, why did we let it, why did the Hong Kong Jockey Club let it start? Because it wasn't allowed to start in Melbourne because it was at risk of injury.
Oh, yeah, I think with that, Professor, there does become the views of the connections, right?
Yep.
If you choose to run a horse, you can't blame someone if something happens, right? I think that's quite obvious. If you choose to take your horse somewhere, run it, and something happens, that is the decision that you're made as owners or trainers of the horse. But to then choose something, pick something else, and get told by another party, you can't run your horse in that race. Say, whoa, hold on. No, you may get injured. Yeah, look, well, I understand there's 2 points of view. They're on a nothing, they're trying to prevent injuries happening. But sometimes in sport, Professor, as in life, accidents happen.
Yeah. All right, let me put this one. I accept everything you say there, Gelding, and it makes perfect sense. Let me put the other point of view, though, from the Hong Kong Jockey Club, who know that there's been a report on this horse and says, no, we're not going to let it start because they're not going to take the risk of being to blame if something happens. Now,
I can see that.
So then it might not race because any other racing club might not let it start.
Yeah.
Now it's now got a risky history
because of a vet's opinion somewhere else.
That's right.
That exactly. It may get injured.
Yeah. It's certainly opened a Pandora's box, hasn't it, Gelding?
Oh, well, Professor, I think they've cut out 4 or 5 horses out of what could have been running tomorrow. Again, have been not scratched by the connections, has been scratched by Racing Victoria or vets or VRC guidelines.
All right, Gelding. Well, the feature race is race 7, the Melbourne Cup. Nice to see it's starting at its usual time of 3 o'clock. Over 3,200 metres. It's a Group 1 for 3-year-olds and above. Now, Gelding, the prize money, 8.5 million.
Yes, Professor.
My question to you is this, Gelding. If this is the race that stops a nation, when will the prize money reflect the status of the race?
Yes, Professor. Without getting too carried away, and while you're doing this, I'm looking for my form guide for Sydney races tomorrow, Professor, because Mr. Volandias has done it again tomorrow. just against the Cup, Professor. He has a race called the Big Dance, worth $3 million. He has a race called the Little Dance, worth 750,000. So again, Peter V'landys is putting up just under 5 million, Professor, with not a Group 1 race, or not a race that stops the nation, Professor. I would have thought, look, it's something I think Racing Victoria and the VRC are doing. And when I say this, Professor, I know this is going to sound contradictory. The amount of money being offered by the VRC and Racing Victoria, I believe, is fantastic, right? They're putting up 30 million over the 4 days. Spread around, fantastic, over 30-odd races, well, 40-odd races, I think 39 to be precise, but it's fantastic prize money. It's just that Sydney has got better prize money, and it is affected by, do we have all the top jockeys? Do we have all the top horses? Maybe not. I'm sure people, and I've just lost my form guide again, Professor. There's some awfully good jockeys up in Sydney tomorrow who normally would have been down here. Nash Rawula, Tommy Berry, Dylan Gibbons, Clark, Chad Schofield. All these people are racing up there, not in Melbourne, Professor. I don't know. It just seems, look, fantastic. There's good prize money in both Sydney and Melbourne. Melbourne does fantastic. It's just lagging a little bit behind Racing New South Wales at the moment, Professor.
Yeah. All right, Gelding, the tracks are good for at the moment. The caution is that it may well improve and be upgraded before the major races tomorrow. Rails out 2 metres. It was in the true position on Saturday, and it favoured runners coming from behind, didn't it, Gelding?
Yeah, so I think that may have, normally when the rail's in the true and there's a north wind, Professor, which there was on Saturday, that tends to favour horses, the run-on type of horses from midfield on. You certainly didn't want to be leading on Saturday. Tomorrow, Professor, what's the temperature supposed to be? 25, 27?
27, Gelding.
Yeah, they're talking about wind, not that I've seen.
No.
So should be a perfect kind of day tomorrow. A bit worried about all of a sudden jump. These horses have been used to temperatures in the 20, Professor, around about 17, 18, 19, 20. Like today, just a beautiful day. Tomorrow, 27 that's going to be hot, Professor. And with a big crowd, hopefully no horses will melt like Verban last year, melted in the parade ring. But, that was 32 degrees, Professor. So let's see how they go tomorrow.
All right. What are your 2 best bets tomorrow, Gelding?
Well, Professor, look, we had a good talk about having a bet in the Cup, which we always have to try to give our listeners to. And we both agreed, Professor, with the same horse, which was quite good. Quite taken by the run of One Smooth Operator in the Geelong Cup, Professor. Won by 2.5 lengths, eased down, sprinted at the top of the turn at Geelong, and just run fantastic. So my first tip of the day, Professor, is race 7, the Melbourne Cup, number 13, One Smooth Operator. Look at one with 54 kilos in the Geelong Cup, Professor, and drops to a nice 51.5 tomorrow. So 51, sorry. We have the informed Craig Williams on board, Professor. Could not be riding any better than at the moment. Having two great wins on Bella Nipotina in the last couple of weeks, one being, of course, the Everest, and last Saturday, a $3 million race up in Sydney. So, excuse my voice, Professor. The tip in the Melbourne Cup is race 7, number 13, One Smooth Operator, with a special mention, Vauban, the top weight, has got the best international form overseas. So, look, I'll be backing that. And I'll be having just a little small each way bet on number 4, Warp Speed, the Japanese horse, Professor, who I'm expecting to improve from the Caulfield Cup, on the dry track and over the 2 miles. Professor, your tip was for One Smooth Operator in the Melbourne Cup?
Yeah, it was Gelding. I like that one, and I also like number 3, Circle of Fire.
Yes, Kieran Maher and Mark Zara, Professor. So right in there. So both have won the cup before. So it must be a reasonable chance. Professor, my second tip, I'll be going later in the day, and we'll go with race 9, Professor. Horse number 5, which is Aviatress, trained by R&C Jolly over in South Australia, and again to be ridden by Craig Williams. So, Professor, I'm hoping Craig Williams has a very, very good day tomorrow, continues his fine form. This horse is shooting for a hat-trick of wins, Professor, previously winning a Group 3 1200 at Caulfield, beating a little deep, and before that winning a benchmark 76 over in Adelaide. So I think it can go quite well in the Group 3 Hong Kong Jockey Club Stakes. That's race 9, number 5. And you like, Professor?
Yeah, Gelding, as I said before, I'm going early. Race 2, the TAB Trophy, a 3-year-old race. It's a listed race over 1,800 metres. I like in that one, number 2, Opening Address, Gelding, which is always very good for a lawyer to be picking a horse by the name of Opening Address. That's what they like to do. Coming out of barrier 6. I thought you'd like that one, Gelding.
Professor, I like it. Do we have the next name for our next horse? Keep on talking.
Keep on talking.
or listen to me. I so advise.
Oh, very good, Gelding. It's had 4 starts for 1 win and 2 placings, so it's got a 25% win rate, 75% place rate. It was the last start second at Moonee Valley, Gelding. The horse is back in class because that last race was a Group 2 race. It ran second to Red Aces that ran 6th in Saturday's Derby, Gelding. So Red Aces only beat it by a quarter of a length. So I like that. That's pretty handy form, if you ask me. You can get $3.40 and $1.55 at the moment. The Super Silk, James McDonald in the saddle, and
Yes.
trained by a trainer we don't mention very often, Gelding, Liam Howley.
Yeah, very. He used to be a private trainer for Lloyd Williams. So, yeah, quite a handy trainer.
Yeah, he's in good form at the moment, Gelding. Over his career, 10% win rate, but over the last 50, he's training at 14% win rate. So that's very handy. My second selection, Gelding, is in race 4, the Schwepper-Vessens Plate. And we all like some Schwepper-Vessens.
Very good. Good mixer, Professor.
That is a very good mixer, Gelding.
A nice gin and tonic tomorrow, do you think?
Oh, Gelding, I'm sure you've poured a few of those in your time.
Oh, Professor, I think about 12:40 watching the races, already having placed our bets and drinking and gambling responsibly. I think we might have the Tanqueray gin with a Schwepper-Vessens tonic water with a nice little bit of cucumber, Professor.
Well, and Gelding, it's just the day for it at 27 degrees, isn't it? Like
I
you couldn't get a better drink and drink responsibly.
I think it. Yes, just a quiet one or two, just to take sit back watching the races on TV. Yeah, it should be good.
All right, the Schweppervessens plates, a 3-year-old open race Gelding over 1,000 metres. I like in this one, number 3 Gelding, Adolfito, coming out of barrier 15. It's had 3 starts for 2 wins, and that's it, no placing. So 67% win and place rate. I'm going to forgive the last start, Gelding. It was 6th of 8 at Caulfield on a heavy 8. I don't think we can take anything from that form. It was
No,
only beaten by 7 lengths, but before that, it had a win at Sandown over 1,000 metres and a win at Flemington over 1,200 metres as a 2-year-old. Trained by a trainer we both know very well, Gelding, Peter Moody and Kath Coleman.
now, did Kath Coleman say anything to you about it, or seeing you two get on very well together?
No, no.
I thought she might have given you a ring or something.
No inside mail, Gelding.
No inside mail. Oh
No.
well, is that a full disclosure?
Yeah, that's
Full
full
and frank
disclosure, Gelding.
disclosure.
Gelding. And interestingly, Gelding, Billy Egan in the saddle for Moody and Coleman tomorrow on this horse. And Billy Egan's doing very well at the moment. I like the odds on this one, Gelding, because it's such an even race. $13 and $4.20 at the moment.
Oh, Professor, beautiful. Together, what? Oh, what's a parlay that into what's one smooth operator?
Well, yeah.
Oh,
we'll be counting a few dollars tomorrow if we get that one up, Gelding.
oh, well done, Professor. I like it.
All right, so my 2 selections for tomorrow, Gelding, race 2, horse 2, opening address, and race 4, horse 3, Adolfito. Now we turn to the Professor's Parlay, which is still running at the moment, Gelding.
Still going? Still
Yes,
going?
yes. Jimmy Starr ran second on Saturday. So
Yeah.
that's a live leg in the place parlay. The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Jacksonville Jaguars earlier this morning, Gelding. So
Yes.
we've got the second leg in, and we're waiting for the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tomorrow.
The undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, Professor.
Yes, Gelding, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. So the jury's still out on Saturday's Professor's Parlay. The Melbourne
But
Cup.
where are we going on Tuesday?
All right, the Melbourne Cup Day Parlay. The agreed bet of the day for all the reasons you said before, Gelding, race 7, horse 13 in the Cup, one smooth operator. And we'll parlay that into, well, we may as well use the same game that's being played at Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tomorrow. That's currently showing $1.23. Mahomes and Kelsey in great form. They're 7 from 7, Gelding, a great start. They're playing at home. As I said on Saturday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have lost their 2 best wide receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That's meant they've lost 3 out of the last 4. I don't like them playing away at Kansas City. The bookies don't like it either, Gelding. 9.5. So it's just under a converted touchdown plus a field goal, the difference. That's 2 possession game. Kansas City Chiefs to win that one. And let's parlay that into, well, why not stick with them? Next weekend, Gelding, Kansas City Chiefs play the Denver Broncos in Kansas.
And
Denver
we're hoping they'll be 8-0 at that stage.
Yes, we're hoping they'll be 8-0, and that win will make them 9-0. Denver Broncos 7th. They've won 5 from 9, Gelding, but 2 of their wins have been against the 2 bottom teams, the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. So I don't give too much credence to that. It's their second away game in a row. They played the Baltimore Ravens earlier today, and they got absolutely smashed 41-10.
Wow.
I'm expecting a similar scoreline when they venture to Kansas City next week. So it's race 7, horse 13, one smooth operator into a Kansas City Chiefs to beat Tampa Bay Buccaneers, into the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Denver Broncos. And Gelding, I think that sets a record. It's the first time we've had the same team in both legs of one parlay.
Well, Professor, that's fantastic. I do like I like the bet. Have you got any odds on those ones, Professor, yet?
$1.20.
Or we have to wait till tomorrow?
No, $1.23. The Chiefs are showing tomorrow, and $1.20 for the Chiefs against the Broncos.
And you
Now,
can probably get, what, 8 to 1 for one smooth operator or $6?
one smooth operator is currently showing $8.50
Oh,
gelding. So,
oh,
yeah, $3.20 the place.
oh, I like it, Professor. I
Yeah.
like it.
So with any luck, gelding, we might have a very good day tomorrow at Flemington.
Hopefully for a very good return on investment, Professor.
Yes, gelding. Yeah, so fingers crossed. The weather should be good. Will they get more than 70 or 80,000 there tomorrow, gelding?
Oh, Professor, I'm not jumping on the soapbox or anything like that, but this is such an iconic event. It'll be sacrilege if we don't get up on a day where it's 25 or 27 degrees, Professor. If we don't get over 100,000, they really do need to look at their pricing of it. You only have to go back 20 years, Professor. Derby Day was always over 100. Cup Day was always well over 100. Even Oaks Day got up to 100,000, on many occasions. Look, I listened to the television coverage on Saturday. They were talking it up. They said, "What a fantastic crowd, 70,000." Then they found another 10,000 people and made it 80,000.
Oh, some late entries, gelding.
In the report, and 80,000 to a race day is a fantastic crowd, Professor. It is sensational, but just goes back onto our hobby horse. Is that the race club? They've lost a fifth of their crowd, 20% of their crowd, Professor, and that's just got to come down to costing, doesn't it?
How many would be there? How many would be there in the current economy if the price point was better, gelding? That's the thing.
Well, exactly, Professor. I think you would find anywhere. Look, we had a horse nominated on Derby Day, and the brief that we got from the VRC, they suggested some places where we'd like to watch the race from if we were going, and they were $595 per person, Professor.
Yeah,
with no drinks or not having a bet. So when they're expecting you to pay $1,000 for two people,
yeah,
for one day, yeah.
All right. Well, a little bit steep there, gelding. All right.
Well, I
Well,
think I'd rather go to Bali, Professor.
yes, I think so too, gelding. All right. Now, gelding, that's our Cup Day selections. We've got another important day Thursday for Oaks Day. So until then, it's good luck.
And good punting.